Hello and welcome. Tonight, a terrorist attack on a Nigerian military camp in Kareto town, Borno State, leaves 5 soldiers killed, 4 missing, with several vehicles set ablaze. President Bola Tinubu writes the National Assembly seeks approval of a fresh 1.767 trillion naira as a new external borrowing plan in the 2024 Appropriation Act. And Vice President Kashim Shettima says efforts are being made to strengthen community policing and enhance border security across the country, especially in the north.
On business news, former Director General of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Professor Ndi Okereke Onyike, challenges the federal government to tap into the domestic stock market for funding.
On sports news tonight, DR Congo's TP Mazembe ladies beat Edo Queens in extra time to end the debutant dream for our first Women's Cup Champions League final match.
And from the nation's capital, Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, approves 1.1 billion naira as compensation to owners of properties affected by the ongoing construction of the airport road to Kuje Expressway.
And in international news from London, Russia says Ukraine has fired US-supplied long-range missiles into the country for the very first time.
The defense headquarters has confirmed a surprise attack carried out by an unconfirmed number of terrorists on troops deployed at Stabilization Operations Pro Force and Defense Site in Gubio local government area of Borno State. A statement issued by the Director of Defense Media Operations, Major General Edward Buba, says the coordinated attack saw 5 soldiers killed, 10 wounded, and 4 missing, while troops eliminated several terrorists and recovered weapons. The statement adds that some equipment, including 1 gun truck, 3 TCV, and excavators, were burned by the terrorists. The statement adds that a reinforcement team with air components were dispatched to exploit the general area and the terrorist withdrawal route. In the meantime, a statement issued by the Borno State Commissioner for Information and Internal Security, Professor Usman Tar, says Governor Babagana Zulum has condemned the atrocious attack and reaffirmed the loyalty, commitment, and support of the people and government of Borno State. Governor Zulum noted that the attack on Kareto will not deter the government from carrying out its constitutional duty of providing the dividends of democracy to the people in collaboration with federal agencies. The governor notes that the Kareto attack is a painful reminder of the callousness of the Boko Haram insurgents who are bent on reversing the gains made in mass resettlement of internally displaced persons back to their ancestral homes in northern Borno. Kareto, a vibrant town, is one of over 20 settlements that are being targeted for resettlement of IDPs from Maiduguri and other locations. Now, for more on this latest attack, we spoke with Major General Nicholas Rogers, who is a former theater commander of Operation Lafia Dole. Major General Rogers bared his mind on the attacks.
It's unfortunate we lost some soldiers during that operation. 5 soldiers were killed, as against the number that some media people are carrying about. Those 5 soldiers were killed. It's unfortunate, and may their souls rest in peace. These are soldiers that have kept day and night for the survival of this country, trying to keep peace all over the nation. So it's unfortunate that these soldiers lost their lives in trying to secure our nation. And I would say that it's a very bad moment for us, the military, and the communities. But having said that, I think that if Kareto is in between Gubio and Damasak and has a direct link to the Tumbus. So the Tumbus is where actually the Boko Haram are currently staying. That's where the soldiers have pushed them in. So they can always come out from the Tumbus and drive straight to Kareto. Kareto has been a major crossing point for them for a very long time. And this is not the first time that Boko Haram is attacking our military camps in the Kareto general area. So, but this one is very unfortunate that it happened. And it happened when the soldiers were carrying out some civil military operations. The state government was coordinating the return of resettlement of IDPs back to their communities. So the soldiers were involved in this operation, and that left our camps a little bit vulnerable because the soldiers were engaged in some other operations around that general area. And these people came and attacked the camp, and then they killed these 5 soldiers and destroyed some equipments.
In the meantime, Boko Haram insurgents have attacked the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, the NSCDC monitoring team for the national grid installation located in Shiroro local government area of Niger State. A statement signed by the National Public Relations Officer of the Corps, Babawale Afolabi, says combined NSCDC operatives in the ambush have repelled the attack and successfully neutralized over 50 of the terrorists in the crossfire. The NSCDC, however, says that 7 of its officers are presently unaccounted for, while efforts are currently underway to locate them in the bush, just as a few others who sustained various degrees of injuries are currently undergoing medical treatment in a medical facility. The incident is said to have occurred on Monday when the convoy of the Special Monitoring Squad, comprising of 9 officers and 71 other ranks drawn from the Commandant General Special Intelligence Squad, operatives, FCT Command and Kaduna State Command were ambushed at Farin Kasa area of Chikun local government area in Kaduna State while crossing from the Shiroro axis after the surveillance and monitoring oversight of the installations. President Bola Tinubu has requested the approval of 1.767 trillion naira loan from the National Assembly and an external borrowing plan for the implementation of the 28.7 trillion naira 2024 budget. President Tinubu made the request in separate letters read in the Senate and House of Representatives during plenary. According to the president's letter, the loan will be used to part finance the budget deficit of 9.7 trillion naira. The president has also forwarded the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper for 2025 to 2027 to the National Assembly. Our National Assembly correspondent Gloria Umezoke now reports.
It's a crowded atmosphere in the National Assembly as lawmakers reconvene after a 2-week recess. In the upper chamber, the President of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio, begins with a correspondence from President Bola Tinubu, who is seeking approval for a fresh external borrowing of 1.77 trillion naira.
I write a request for a resolution of the National Assembly to raise the sum of 2.2 United States dollars provided as new external borrowing in the 2024 Appropriation Act to part finance the budget deficit of about 9.17 trillion.
President Tinubu, who forwarded same to the House of Representatives, also forwarded the medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper to both chambers.
As the 2025 budget of the federal government will be prepared based on the parameters and fiscal assumptions of the approved 2025 to 2027, it is imperative to seek the National Assembly's expeditious legislative action on this submission.
Shortly after, the Senate suspends its rules to admit family members and relatives of the late Senator Ifeanyi Ubah for the commencement of a valedictory session in his honor. The chamber is expectedly filled to capacity and the mood solemn as the President of the Senate zeroes in attention to the seat of their former colleague, draped with the Nigerian flag, flowers and 4 candles. The Vice President, Kashim Shettima, is admitted into the chamber as he joins the session.
He was the senator representing Anambra South. His death has numbed all of us into emotional turmoil and amounts to a very huge deficit in the political terrain of our nation.
Lawmakers, apparently subsumed with a shared sense of loss, continued to pour in tributes.
He had passion for life and lived it to the fullest. He believed in fairness, equity, and justice.
We used to joke a lot about life, and we never knew it would be like this. We plan of following him to Anambra State to make sure that he will be the governor of Anambra State. But we must accept the will of God.
I would like his family to know that in the Senate, Ifeanyi has achieved immortality in our hearts.
The Vice President, who also doubles as a former colleague, is granted the floor.
Your
Lawmakers then observe a minute's silence in honor of their late colleague.
Dr. Ifeanyi Ubah, rest in perfect peace.
The Senate also embarked on a procession to the foyer to pay their last respects to their late colleague.
The Senate has adopted 2 resolutions, one of which is to immortalize the late senator, to name a committee room after him, and that the committee of the whole, led by the President of the Senate, will attend the burial ceremony slated for November 22nd. From the National Assembly, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
Vice President Kashim Shettima says efforts are being made to strengthen community policing and enhance border security across the country, especially in the north, which is currently faced with security challenges. The Vice President stated this at the opening of a stakeholders roundtable on northern Nigerian youth development in Abuja. Our State House correspondent, Emperor Simon, reports.
This roundtable, organized by the Sir Ahmadu Bello Foundation, with Vice President Kashim Shettima in attendance, brings together stakeholders in northern Nigeria, including Governor Ubasani of Kaduna State, former governors, and lawmakers, the Sultan of Sokoto, and other traditional as well as religious leaders. Top on the agenda of the meeting is youth development, security, and the socio-economic challenges in the region, which organizers say require transparency in governance and adequate investment in education.
We must look at our educational curriculum so that people will leave school, will leave primary school, will leave secondary school, will leave university with skills.
The Sultan of Sokoto begins his conversation, clarifying the relationship between traditional institutions and the political leaders.
We are not afraid of any governor. We only respect governors because they are governors, and we respect ourselves. If you are called upon to work with the governor, with anybody, 24 hours a day, we are always ready. Importantly,
he commends the federal government for establishing the National Commission for Almajiri and out-of-school children education.
Our youth definitely are the strong foundations of the development of instance of any society. Because they are the ones that say leaders of tomorrow, but I want to say leaders of today.
Vice President Shettima, who calls for unity of the country, says Nigeria cannot prosper unless every part of the country thrives.
Our challenge here is to engineer a transition towards a federation defined by order, stability, and safety. This task is both urgent and achievable, and it requires all of us. And our efforts to restore stability to the north include strengthening community policing, rehabilitating displaced persons, and addressing cross-border challenges like smuggling and insurgencies. Its measures are aimed at creating a secure environment for economic revitalization.
It's been 58 years since the death of Sir Ahmadu Bello, and organizers say this event will also promote the ideals which the former premier of the northern region lived for. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
In part 2, after the break, a fire outbreak at Laranto Market in Jos North local government area of Plateau State destroys property worth millions of naira. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, broadcasted live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. A terrorist attack on a Nigerian military camp in Kareto town, Borno State, leaves 5 soldiers killed, 4 missing, with several vehicles set ablaze. President Bola Tinubu writes the National Assembly seeks approval of a fresh 1.767 trillion naira as a new external borrowing plan in the 2024 Appropriation Act. And Vice President Kashim Shettima says efforts are being made to strengthen community policing and enhance border security across the country, especially in the north. The federal government is reinforcing security across all land borders with the deployment of modern security equipment for effective data gathering and safer legitimate trade and travels. At a meeting with the immigration officers that will be manning this equipment in Abuja, the Minister of Interior highlighted the critical role of the Immigration Service in national security and advised the officers and men to live above the designation of a travel document issuance agency taken on its core mandate of border security.
The Minister of Interior, along with the Comptroller General of Immigration and other senior officers of the service, make their way into the Command and Control Center of the Nigeria Immigration Service. Equipped with ICT facilities, the center will be the coordinating hub for activities of border security officers who have been trained on handling of the new technology installed at various borders across the country. After the brief tour, it is time to address the border security officers. Here, the Comptroller General highlights the scope of training and expectations from the officers.
These officers before you today, they've gone through a lot of training, they've been educated, there's a lot of knowledge transfer, skill building to ensure that once they're on the field, they know what they're doing, they know how to use the system to better enhance our national security. I need to let you know that to whom a lot is given, a lot is expected. And I charge you, and I hope that you will take this as seriously as a responsibility that you ought to do.
These officers have been trained on e-border security solutions to enhance surveillance and effective data gathering. The Minister of Interior is hopeful that investment in equipment and training will improve security at the borders.
The border is very, very peculiar. Nigeria is both a Sahel state and a state in the Gulf of Guinea. That is a unique geographical, you have to understand that. And in the Sahel, you understand the situation of the Sahel. 5 of the top 10 poorest countries in the world are in the Sahel. Issue of climate change is an issue that also affects irregular migration within the Sahel. Please, at your border post, technology will do its part, but technology will never replace man. Let's understand that. We need you to utilize this technology to the best.
Nigeria is bordered by Benue, Cameroon, Chad, and Niger, with a total land border mass of 4,047 kilometers, an expanse that no doubt requires a mix of dedicated officers and the deployment of modern security technology for effective coverage.
President Bola Tinubu has hailed the creation of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty, championed by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil. The president described the alliance as pivotal in the global fight against hunger and poverty. President Tinubu made this statement at the opening session of the 19th G20 Leaders Summit in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. He lauded the initiative and described it as the right step to address one of the world's most significant challenges. The president compared this global initiative to the one of the 8 priority areas he outlined at his inauguration some 18 months ago, expressing Nigeria's eagerness to adopt international best practices to advance its economic development.
The fight against hunger and poverty is not a matter of choice, but a matter of priority for me. Where do I get those helps? I have a very vibrant youth population, 70% below the age of 30. To all of us here, investment in education, investment in health, and investment in food security. Cheaper financing, the risk in various African countries, putting us on a better and more progressive arrangement to prioritize food security and the agricultural reforms.
Meanwhile, at the conclusion of the G20 summit in Rio sent mixed signals to negotiators in Baku, Nigerian Minister of Environment Balarabe Lawal has told delegates of the UN Climate Conference that the world must act now. Speaking earlier today at the resumed high-level segment of COP29, the minister also said Nigeria is open to collaborating and partnering to expand the country's renewable energy sector. Some progress has been made in the climate talks, but it remains largely deadlocked on several key issues like the new finance goal. The COP29 presidency is urging ministers to accelerate discussions and demonstrate courage in reaching a fair and ambitious deal.
You have the floor.
Nigeria kicked off the day with the Minister of Environment telling world leaders that it's time to move from rhetoric to action.
Mr. President.
He therefore advocated for the means of implementation to achieve global goals on adaptation.
Nigeria aligns with the rest of Africa in demanding greater, easier access to international finance, including grant and concessional loans to support mitigation and adaptation efforts. We stress the need to significantly scale up adaptation finance to enable developing countries to accelerate adaptation and build resilience. We also urge for accelerated effort to operationalize the loss and damage fund to mitigate the damaging impact of climate change globally.
Nigeria may be blessed. He then moved on to the Nigerian pavilion, where he was joined by the Minister of Power, the Minister of Regional Development, and the Minister of Women Affairs to host Nigerian delegates for the Nigerian Day. But he did not shy away from correcting some media reports on the number of delegates in Baku. Many have quoted the provisional figure of registered participants from Nigeria listed by the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. This list has President Tinubu as a participant in Baku. Though he registered, he did not attend.
From our assessment, the number that came as delegates are 157. The numbers that came on their own about 152. Honorable Ministers.
The Minister of Environment later joined his counterparts from Sierra Leone, the Gambia, and Angola to detail African ministers' COP29 climate finance asks.
I think what Africa now wants, what our countries are expecting, is that those commitments must now be turned into actions, and we want to see finances that will go towards saving our countries, that will go towards the actual fight against climate change, so that we don't continue using our limited resources from developing our countries to fighting climate change.
Amid accusations and counter-accusations on who is blocking progress here in Baku, as the talks hit crunch time, African ministers have made it clear that a deal on climate finance must be agreed without compromise to the needs of Africa and other developing countries. From the Olympic Stadium, the venue of COP29 in Baku, Azerbaijan, Ayola Kasim, Channels Television News.
Back home, over 100 shops were burnt and property estimated at over 1 billion naira were destroyed in the fire incident which occurred at the Laranto Katako market in Jos North local government area of Plateau State. The fire incident, which was attributed to suspected power supply outage, affected the carpentry and timber sections of the market on Sunday night, with several working tools, equipment and materials burnt. The Plateau State Governor, Caleb Mutfwang, visited the scene to empathize with the victims, with assurances that demands of the affected traders will receive adequate attention, while the market will be remodeled and upgraded with modern facility to avoid future occurrence.
It's very sad that this fire outbreak occurred at a time of great difficulty for people in the country. So losses have occurred. We want to sympathize with those who lost their property, and we would work together to see how we can reduce the damage that has been caused. But this also gives us opportunity to review how this market has operated over the years. We would sit down together with the market leaders, with the Jos North local government administration, and see how we can be able to rejig this market with a view to modernizing it so that in the next it can last for several more years to come, that the newer generation will find a functional market that is in tandem with modern times.
Still ahead on the news at 10, former Director General of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Professor Indio Kereke Onyuke, asked the federal government to tap into the domestic stock market for funding. That's in business news. Please join us again. Welcome back. Flood victims in Zamfara State are urgently appealing for humanitarian assistance following a devastating flood that had left many communities in dire straits. Now, the recent flood in some local government areas, which caused widespread displacement, destruction of homes, and loss of farmlands, worsened the already challenging living conditions in the state.
The flooding in Zamfara State affected several local government areas, including Gumi, Gaso, Anka, Maradun, and Talata Mafara. Residents of Morai, Sabungeri, Sakua and Akila under Talata Mafara, Zamfara State are grappling with the aftermath of severe flooding that has devastated their communities, leaving thousands homeless. The flood, which followed days of heavy rainfall, has left victims counting their losses and appealing to the federal and state governments and anyone else willing to help for urgent humanitarian assistance.
It was the floods that washed it away. It was here they gave me a room to stay before I rebuilt my own. If God allows them to rebuild the houses for us, we will be grateful to Him and those people who help us.
In response, Save the Children Initiative, in collaboration with Save Mother and Children Initiative, are donating relief items and hygiene kits to victims of flood disaster in Talata Mafara local government area. Presenting the items to the beneficiaries at the Emir's Palace, the program manager, Save Mother and Children Initiative, Ibrahim Mohammed, says the gesture is geared towards preventing cholera and other disease outbreaks because of the stagnant floodwaters.
We are here today just as the continuation of the activity after the sensitization to the people, and we have rehabilitated some of their water source facilities. So we are here today to distribute IG kits to the beneficiary of affected flooding in Talata Mafara. Whenever the issue of flooding happened, the flooding used to lead to some diseases like cholera and the rest. So, and if we did not take action today, so it may affect the whole nation.
The Emir laments the effect of the disaster on thousands of people, especially women and children, and commends the organization for selecting the communities under his emirate for the humanitarian assistance.
I wish to make a very good use of this opportunity to urge both the state and the federal government to put more effort in assisting the victims of the flood within the emirate in particular and across the state at large.
Community leaders believe relief materials are a temporary measure to alleviate their suffering and appeal to the government to implement long-term solutions to prevent a recurrence of such disasters.
Let's now head to the nation's capital, and Terry Kumi is standing by to give us the latest from our Abuja studios. Over to you, Terry.
Well, thank you very much, Ayo. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations has launched the dry season farming with the distribution of farm implements to farmers in the states of Borno, Adamawa, and Yobe in response to the rise in food insecurity being experienced globally. At the launch of the event at Kadamari, the headquarters of Jere local government area in Borno State, the UN agency also provided nutritional supplements and safe access to fuel-efficient kits to 300 households with children under 5 years of age.
A recent survey has revealed that about 4.9 million persons in northeast Nigeria are facing severe food insecurity. Of that number, about 2 million are in Borno State. The situation is made worse by the flood incident of 2024 that destroyed over 300,000 hectares of farmland across 24 local government areas in the 3 states. At least 49,000 farmers from the affected local government areas will receive farm implements and improved seedlings for the dry season farming to ameliorate the effects of the floods. 24,000 of that number will be drawn from the 12 local government areas in Borno State. The country rep of FAO speaks further on the project.
FAO will continue to our support to the Nigeria government in terms of food productions. So I'm here to distribute agricultural input, seeds, tomatoes, okra, vegetables, and also fertilizer and water pump to allow the farmers to produce the dry season.
The Borno State government says it's also doing something to address the situation and food insecurity in the state.
As part of its commitment to strengthening the agricultural sector, improving food security and fostering rural development. However, our vision for agriculture goes beyond just the provision of inputs. We are focused on creating an environment where farmers have access to knowledge, technology, and infrastructures that need to thrive. This includes expanding access to credit, improving irrigation system, promoting sustainable farming practice. I want to assure you that this administration remains committed to supporting you in every step of the way.
The distribution of these implements aims to assist recently relocated communities and flood-affected areas by providing essential resources for recovery and resilience. Each household will receive 10 kilograms of maize seeds, 12.5 kilograms of rice seeds or a mix of vegetable seeds, along with 25 kilograms of NPK 15-15-15 fertilizer.
Back here in the FCT, the minister, Mr. Nyesom Wike, has approved a sum of 1.1 billion naira as compensation to owners of properties affected by the ongoing construction of the airport road to Kuje Expressway. The minister made the announcement while inspecting some ongoing projects in the nation's capital. About 13 buildings, including some factories along the road corridor, are affected by the construction of the 6-lane dual-carriage expressway.
I'm happy what I've seen, and I will greatly approve it so that they can start paying the compensation so that the work will not be delayed. What they tell, if I remember vividly, the estimate they gave about 1.something billion, well, 1.1 billion. Yes. And to pay for those whose property are affected, like some of these buildings you have seen here, down to the community. So 1.1 billion, and we are going to make it available so that the contractor will not find any excuse for delay. First of all, it is the commitment made by the federal government under the new agenda that the workers' wages should be increased. And in line with that, we have also adopted it and have also approved for the payment of the arrears as agreed with the labor. I expect that the workers will also see this as a boost and be more committed for us to achieve the development that is required in the city. So workers should not leave it at all. Now that what have been paid, it means that more work is expected from you.
In Gombe State, Governor Yahaya has presented a 2025 budget proposal of 320.11 billion naira to the State House of Assembly. The governor explains that the 2025 budget, titled Budget of Commitment and Resilience, emphasizes capital expenditure aimed at driving inclusive and sustainable development. Governor Yahaya allocates 111.09 billion naira to recurrent expenditure and 209.02 billion naira to capital projects.
Governor Yahaya arrives the Gombe State House of Assembly complex and he is received into the chamber by the lawmakers led by the Speaker of the House. The governor is in the chamber to present the 2025 budget estimates to the lawmakers. After a review of the performance of the 2024 budget, the governor promises to do more, especially in health, education, and infrastructural development.
It's now my singular honor to present to this esteemed House the 2025 budget proposal, amount to 320.11 120,110 million naira only, titled The Budget of Commitment and Resilience. It underscores our unwavering commitment to overcoming challenges and fostering inclusive growth for the collective well-being of our people. I urge this Honorable House to critically appraise and enrich this budget proposal, thus ensuring that it meets the aspirations of our people.
The governor then lays a proposal of 320.1 billion naira before the state lawmakers. The state government plans to generate 160.27 billion naira in recurrent revenue, 71.52 billion naira in capital receipts, while projecting an estimated closing balance of 11.68 billion naira for 2024.
Key priority sectors of this 2025 budget are education, health, human capital, and works infrastructure. So these 4 or 5 carried over 70% of the budget. So we can see the commitment of His Excellency. Education is something that we need, and we want our children to grow up being educated. 2, health. Without health, nothing will happen. So this is the second priority. The third priority is infrastructure. You can see that roads are being constructed, both rural and urban roads, houses, and now he is constructing the 3-arm zone.
The state government is assuring the citizens that the budget reflects the state's commitment to equitable development, aligning with local, national, and global economic realities.
Well, from Gombe State, we head to Benue State, where Governor Hyacinth Alia has approved the implementation of 75,000 naira as the new minimum wage for Benue civil servants from November 2024. The governor disclosed this to journalists at a briefing after a closed-door meeting with the Joint Negotiation Council and the State Secretariat.
Members of the Benue State Joint Negotiations Council, comprising of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Trade Union Congress, and other affiliate unions, are meeting on the implementation of the new national minimum wage in the state. Governor Hyacinth Alia joins them along with members of his cabinet for a closed-door meeting. After 1 hour, the governor announces the decision reached on the new national minimum wage.
And I'm happy to announce that the new minimum wage of 75,000 naira is being approved. We know that you as civil servants had gone through so much. It was our intent even to cushion the effects of the hardships on workers. And so you may recall, we had said we would take care of 5 months of your arrears.
The chairman of the Joint Negotiation Council reassures the governor of their support for effective service delivery.
As far as the civil service was concerned, before your emergence, we've had a series of problems in the state. But since you came, no civil servant in Benue State has received salaries beyond 23rd of every month. And as a result of this, it has placed us on a good foot that will be able to plan, even though the resources became very small because of the introduction of the removal of fuel subsidy.
The NLC chairman speaks on the need for the state to implement the minimum wage.
I'm so happy as the chairman of NSA and as the chairman of NAS level, because this thing has been ringing for quite a long time. And not just only 75,000 naira. He has also signed the 30,000 naira adjustment or minimum wage that was on the ground.
The governor is promising to pay the remaining 3 months of salary arrears as agreed with labor union leaders simultaneously with the new minimum wage between November and December of 2024.
Well, next we have business news, and here's Willie Bonk.
Thank you, Terry, and welcome to Business News. A former Director General of the Nigerian Stock Exchange, Professor Ndio Onyike, is challenging the federal and state governments in the country to prioritize domestic funding to foreign borrowings. Professor Onyike, who was speaking with Channel's television business editor Ini John Mekwa during an exclusive interview, is also asking Nigerians to get more involved in government spending by asking questions.
I believe that it is the stock market that creates wealth in every economy. Look at all the money we have in oil and gas. Are we making money that we ought to make? If we had people that would carry themselves into the engine room of the stock market and list our oil company in the stock markets, but they don't want to, because they want to steal Nigeria's money, and they've been doing so. And then what happens? They steal the money. We know they stole the money, but then people glorify them. So it's the fault of all Nigerians. You see somebody, you don't know how he made his money, only that he worked in government. What are you glorifying him for? You know he stole the money. What's their salary? My salary in the stock exchange is more than the salary of the president of Nigeria. But the president of Nigeria can buy me over 20 million times over. 20 million times over.
Yeah, the full interview will be aired on Business Morning tomorrow, November the 20th at 10 a.m. Stay tuned. Now move on to Anambra State, where the Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, has presented the 2025 budget proposal of 606.99 billion naira to the State House of Assembly. The budget, tagged Changing Gears 2.0, marks a 48% increase from 2024's 410 billion naira, with 139.5 billion naira for recurrent expenses and 467.5 billion naira for capital projects. Key allocations include a 100% increase for education, 82.7% for the social sector, 57.1% for health, and 51.3% for the judiciary. Governor Soludo highlights the state's commitment to accelerated budget execution, achieving over 50% implementation in 2024 without borrowing. Now we check out the domestic stock market, which sustained positive sentiments as the all-share index rises by 0.23%. Laddie Williams has the details.
Welcome to the Tuesday market close. Well, this week is shaping up to be dominated by the bulls as the all-share index rises by 0.23%. Although trading volume was less compared to yesterday, but value, that was of trade, came in higher. So you've seen market cap 59 trillion. Let's look at the sectoral performance now. Fun fact, you see the oil and gas counter, that's up a whopping 133%. This year, that's year to date. Well, today is up 0.35%. Year to date, it's outperformed the all-share index and also outperformed inflation, depending on where you get your data from. Consumer goods, 0.25% up. And the market mover today, we see the telecom giants came out to play with MTN Nigeria adding about 1.18% to its share price, allowing the bull come out to play.
And that's it on business. It's back to Ayotunde for the rest of the news at 10.
Thank you, Will. New York prosecutors vow to oppose President-elect Donald Trump's efforts to overturn his criminal conviction as they express willingness to wait to sentence him when he completes his upcoming presidential term in 2029. Yes, Simon Hughes with other international news in Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Russia has said Ukraine has fired US-supplied long-range missiles into the country for the first time. The Ministry of Defense in Moscow said Ukraine used the Army tactical missile system in a strike on Russia's Bryansk region this morning. 5 missiles were shot down and 1 damaged, with its fragments causing a fire at a military facility in the region, it said in a statement. Use of the US missiles was also reported in Ukrainian media, but Ukraine has not yet officially commented. Ukraine's military earlier confirmed that it had struck an ammunition warehouse in the Russian region of Bryansk, but it did not specify whether ATACMS were used. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has urged Europe to push Russia harder in a speech marking 1,000 days since Vladimir Putin launched a full-scale invasion of the country. Addressing members of the European Parliament on Tuesday morning, 1,000 days since the invasion began on the 24th of February 2022, Zelensky warned that Putin would not stop on his own and urged that Russia be pushed towards a just peace. Zelensky was speaking a day after Washington signaled its permission to use long-range weapons inside Russia. Giselle Pellico, the victim in the mass rape trial that has shocked France and the world, has given her final statement this morning. There will forever be 51 people who have defiled me, she said, and I will have to live with this for the rest of my life. Dominique Pellico admits drugging his then-wife for almost a decade and recruiting dozens of men to rape her in their home when she was unconscious. He is on trial with 50 other men in the southern city of Avignon. A verdict from a panel of 5 judges is expected on the 20th of December. A Hong Kong court has sentenced dozens of pro-democracy leaders to years in jail for subversion following a controversial national security trial. Benny Tai and Joshua Wong were among the so-called Hong Kong 47 group of activists and lawmakers who were involved in a plan to pick opposition candidates for local elections. Tai received 10 years, while Wong received more than 4 years. A total of 45 people were jailed for conspiring to commit subversion. 2 of the defendants were acquitted in May. This was the biggest trial under the national security law which China explosive pro-democracy protests in 2019.
We are gravely concerned by the use of these security laws and the breadth to criminalise conduct protected by human rights to freedom of expression, peaceful assembly and association.
The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says a convoy of 109 UN aid lorries carrying food was violently looted in Gaza. 97 of the lorries were lost and their drivers were forced at gunpoint to unload their aid after passing through the Israeli-controlled Kerem Shalom crossing with southern Gaza in what is believed to have been the worst incidence of its kind. UNRWA Commissioner General Philippe Lazzarini did not identify the perpetrators, but he said the total breakdown of civil order in Gaza meant it had become an impossible environment to operate in. Tanzania's president says at least 13 people have died when a building collapsed in the country's commercial capital, Dar es Salaam, and more than 80 people have been rescued. The 4-story building in eastern Dar es Salaam's Karaiku market came down on Saturday. The Prime Minister of the country, Kassim Majaliwa, inspected the site earlier to see progress on the ongoing rescue efforts. He assured the nation that operations would continue until all the missing are accounted for. And 22 people have been rescued after being trapped on a ride at California's Knott's Berry Farm for more than 2 hours. The park's Soul Spin ride experienced technical difficulties which caused the ride to stop, leaving the riders suspended. A video shows mechanics on a lift working to restart the ride.
Of the ride itself. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of communication going on or any kind of a rescue effort whatsoever.
Later, mechanics were able to lower the ride to the ground to allow the passengers to exit. 2 people were taken away in wheelchairs after getting off the ride. The Soul Spin ride is a fast-paced spinning wheel that rotates in several directions. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the channel's studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. Nigeria's representative Edo Queens will now settle for the bronze medal match in the Women's CAF Champions League after DR Congo's TP Mazembe ladies beat the Nigerian side 3-1 in extra time. It was a game Edo Queens would be kicking themselves after failing to hold on to their 1-0 lead as the TP Mazembe scored in the 90th minute to send the game to extra time. The Congolese then went on to score 2 more goals in extra time to advance to the final. Morocco's FAR Rabat beat Egypt Massa women 2-1 to reach the final. That sports is back to you, Ayotunde.
Many thanks, Chris. And the main news again. A terrorist attack on a Nigerian military camp in Kareto town, Borno State, has left 5 soldiers that is killed, 4 missing, with several vehicles set ablaze. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ayotunde. From everyone here is good night.